Yeah, I'm here to talk about the data collection. You know, research is a process, so many of the times, what really inspires me to talk about a specific aspect on this my YouTube channel is always uh, the discussions that we always have with the students, especially at postgraduate level. So after we had several research meetings with my students, I realized that there is need for me to talk about this aspect of data collection. We would start by understanding what data collection is all about. It is a process of gathering information, data. Gathering data, which we gather in many ways, either through observations or through taking measurements. So, this is a common aspect, whether you are doing research in business, education, whether you're doing research for governmental organizations or for academic purposes. We must understand that data collection allows you to have an opportunity to get original data and insights into your problem or research problem. Therefore, before you correct data, or if you want to begin correcting data, you need to consider the following aspects: the aim of your research, the type of the data you will correct or you intend to correct, and then the methods and the procedures that you will use to collect, store, and process your data. So we don't expect researchers to go to the field in a name of collecting data when they have not put this into consideration. So you see that you need to consider those three aspects before you embark on correcting data. So I would like to talk about them. One is you need to correct your data in 4 steps. So to correct high quality data that is relevant to your purpose, please, you must go through these 4 steps. 1, you define your aim of your research. Of course, this has already been, for example, if you're writing a thesis, we think this has already been done in chapter 1. So we don't want to assume that you go to correct data without revisiting your aim of your research. So before you start the process of data collection, you identify exactly what you want to achieve. And you have already stated this in your chapter 1. So you must go back to your research problem and see exactly what practical or scientific issue that you want to address in that problem and how it matters to you. And therefore, you also revisit your research questions to define what you really precisely want to find out, or which, when you go to the field, which kind of data are you specifically looking for. You may find that if you visit this, it will give you a direction on whether you need to correct quantitative data or qualitative data. In my previous videos, I kept telling you the difference about these 2 types or kinds of data. Quantitative is expressed in numbers or graphs, and is analyzed through statistical methods, whereas qualitative data is expressed in words and analyzed through themes, interpretations, and categorizations. So if your aim is to test hypothesis, then you are going to correct quantitative data. Now, if your aim is to explore ideas, then also to explore ideas or to understand experiences or to gain detailed insights into specific contexts, then you are going to correct qualitative data. So we don't expect you to go to the field when you don't know exactly which kind of data you want to correct. And the only way you will be able to understand the kind of data you want to correct is when you know your aim of your research and your research questions. There are certain times you have several aims, maybe in your research. Therefore, your research may require that you correct mixed methods approach, you correct data through a mixed method approach, which helps you to correct data, the both types of data, where you're correcting qualitative and quantitative data. The step 2, you choose your data collection method. This one is very, very important. Now, after you have, based on the data you want to correct, after you have understood the exact type of data you want to correct, then the next aspect is to decide which method is the best suited for your research. Of course, we have several methods. It may be, maybe you are doing experimental research. This is primarily quantitative, or you are doing you want to use qualitative methods, which are interviews. Maybe you are using focus groups, ethnographies. These are qualitative methods. Or you are using surveys, observations, or you are using secondary data, which can be qualitative or quantitative. So you have to carefully understand what method you want to use to gather that data that will help you to answer your research questions. Now, this is the reason why we put much emphasis on chapter 3, because on chapter 3 you have already stated your methodology, you have already your procedures clearly stated. So we don't expect a researcher to go, that's for academic research, to go to the field before your chapter 3 is well validated by your mentors or your supervisors, because it specifies or brings out clearly these issues. Step 3, you plan your data collection procedures. This one is also quite important. You now know the kind of data you want to correct. You now know the methods you are using or you want to use to correct your data. The next aspect is to understand how you will implement these aspects. The procedures you want to follow must be well stated while you are correcting your data. For example, are you going to conduct surveys or you are going to conduct interviews? So you decide the questions that you will ask your respondents, and if you are conducting experiments, you take decisions about your experimental design, and this means that you will certainly have your operationalization of your variables very well, and this is stipulated in your procedure, so that you understand exactly which kind of procedures you use in that aspect. So you must have a plan. You create what we call in that procedure data management plan. So before you begin your data collection, you should also decide how you will organize and store your data. If you are collecting data from people, you will likely need to safeguard and protect them, and then be ethical. Don't leak out sensitive information. For example, their names. There is sensitive research that you don't need to. You need to specify all this in your procedure. So you must have a clear procedure. The last step, of course, after all that is organized, and you have all that well prepared, the final step is for you to correct your data. So you can now go ahead and implement. This is just implementation stage. You go ahead to correct data. For example, you may be collecting qualitative data. So the example is that probably you want to correct data about perceptions of managers. So you go ahead and administer maybe interview schedules or focus group discussions to get that qualitative data. Or you want to correct probably to correct quantitative data, then probably you now go and issue out close-ended questionnaires and ask participants, for example, to rate their manager's leadership skills on a scale. Maybe you're using Likert scale, and then the data, of course, in this aspect is numerical, and you can statistically analyze that data and to get patterns, to get themes, directions in your data. So if you want to have, as I conclude, high quality data, then you must ensure that you go through the practices of recording all the data you have obtained. You note down all the equipments you have used, and then you double check your data entry, because if you are entering your data manually in SPSS, you have to double check for data entry for errors. And then if you are correcting quantitative data, you have to assess the reliability and validity of the instruments to get to ensure data quality. Thank you so much. It marks the end of this. I invite you to subscribe to my YouTube channel and also on the notification button, so that if there is any video pertaining research, this is going to be a continuation. So the next aspect will be, now if we have data, the next video will be about demonstrating how we manage our data management, data entry, and data cleaning. Thank you so much. This is Abdallah signing out. Bye-bye. Have a good night.